The earth beneath the graveyard was cursed, but no one knew how deep the horror ran. Beneath the soil, beyond the bones, something ancient and malevolent waited for its chance to surface. Pinegrove Cemetery sat on the edge of town, a sprawling relic of the past. Its wrought iron gates groaned with age, the tombstones cracked and crooked like rotting teeth in the earth's jaw. It was a place people avoided after sundown, not because they believed in ghosts, but because something about it didn't feel right. By day, it was a sad, weathered landscape of forgotten graves and tangled vines. By night, it transformed into a suffocating void. For me, Pinegrove was no urban legend. It was the last place my sister Ellie had been seen before she vanished without a trace 3 months ago. The police found no clues, no tracks, no belongings, no signs of a struggle. Just her name, scratched into a gravestone that didn't belong to her. I remember my mother sitting at the kitchen table for days on end, staring at the wall. My father drowned himself in work, but I couldn't sit still. I was obsessed with the graveyard. Every theory, every twisted explanation I could find pointed to the same conclusion. Something was hidden beneath it, something old, evil, and waiting. I waited until midnight, when the streets were silent and the air was thick with mist. Armed with a flashlight, a crowbar, and a stolen shovel, I crept to Pinegrove. The air grew colder as I passed through the rusted gates. The beam of my flashlight flickered over crumbling gravestones. I paused at one of the oldest sections of the cemetery, where the graves were barely legible. This was where Ellie's name had appeared, scrawled across an unmarked stone. The ground beneath the gravestone seemed wrong. The soil was loose, as if it had been recently disturbed. I dug into it, my shovel sinking far too easily into the earth. It wasn't long before I hit something solid. A wooden lid. A coffin. My heart pounded. I forced the crowbar between the cracks and pried it open. Inside was a mass of writhing black shapes. They weren't worms or maggots. They were larger, with too many legs and teeth that gleamed like broken glass. They swarmed toward me, pouring out of the coffin like a tidal wave of living shadows. I stumbled back, falling onto the ground, and as I did, I heard it. A voice so faint it could have been mistaken for the wind. "Why didn't you save me?" It was Ellie's voice. Before I could react, the ground beneath me caved in. I fell into darkness. The air knocked from my lungs as I landed on something hard. My flashlight shattered, plunging me into pitch blackness. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, turning on the screen light. The faint glow revealed I was in a tunnel, a damp, narrow passageway lined with dirt and tangled roots. But those weren't just roots. As I stepped closer, I saw they were skeletal fingers protruding from the walls. My breathing grew shallow. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the walls seemed to pulse, almost as if the tunnel was alive. Then I heard it again. "Come closer," the voice whispered. It wasn't just Ellie now. It was dozens of voices, overlapping and echoing, beckoning me deeper. As I moved forward, I saw them, shapes in the darkness. They were humanoid, but barely. Their skin hung like rags, their eyes were empty sockets, and their mouths were full of jagged teeth. They moved unnaturally, like marionettes controlled by invisible strings. At the center of the tunnel was a massive pit, and above it, something hung from the ceiling. A cocoon made of flesh. It pulsed rhythmically, its surface slick and glistening. And inside, I saw her, Ellie. Her face was pressed against the translucent membrane, her eyes wide with terror. She mouthed something, but I couldn't hear her over the deafening whispers that filled the cavern. "Save her," the voices hissed, "or join her." I reached for the crowbar, gripping it tightly as I moved toward the cocoon. The figures around me shrieked, their movements frantic. One of them lunged at me, its bony hands tearing at my arm. I swung the crowbar, the impact cracking its skull like porcelain. As I struck the cocoon, black liquid spilled out, burning my skin where it touched. Ellie's body slumped forward, limp and lifeless. I pulled her free, ignoring the pain, but as I did, the ground began to quake. The pit yawned wider, and from its depths rose something I can barely describe. It was enormous, its body a writhing mass of limbs and faces, each face twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Its eyes locked onto mine, and I felt an overwhelming sense of despair, a crushing weight that made me want to give up, to let it take me. But Ellie stirred in my arms. She was alive, barely. Her eyes met mine, and I knew I had to get us out. I ran, carrying Ellie as the tunnel collapsed behind us. The creatures clawed at us, their screeches filling the air. My legs burned, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Finally, I saw it, the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the hole I had fallen through. With one last burst of energy, I hoisted Ellie up and climbed out after her. The graveyard was eerily silent. I turned back to the grave, expecting to see the pit, the creatures, the horror. But the ground was undisturbed, as if nothing had ever happened. Ellie's breathing was shallow, her skin pale. I shook her gently, and her eyes fluttered open. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They'll come for you, too." That was a week ago. Ellie doesn't talk about what happened beneath the graveyard, and I don't press her. But every night I hear the whispers, "Come back." The graveyard calls to me, and I know it won't stop until I answer. Did this story keep you on the edge of your seat? If you love spine-chilling tales of terror, subscribe to my channel for more horror stories that will haunt your dreams. New stories every week. Don't miss out.